will be live in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Thank you for joining us. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, and that means it's DDFW Realty podcast time. You may notice I did a little changing. Instead of just being a DDFW Realty podcast, after last week doing it by myself, I felt like it was going to get very boring, very quick. I love real estate. The bottom line is if you want to sell or buy real estate, guarantee if you call me and use me, you'll be happy with the services. You're going to get a better deal, all those good things. My guest today, I can talk about that a little bit in a second, because you actually bought a house from me, right? Yeah,
that is correct.
It is.
Like 7 years ago now, I think.
Jesus, time flies.
Yeah.
But basically, so now it's the DDFW Realty's Conspiracy City podcast. That is a mouthful. But I thought Conspiracy City would be fun, just because obviously it's like we live in pretty conspiratorial times now. JFK, that's pretty one of the biggest ones going at the moment that we're like, that happened. That wasn't like, that's not like just crazy people talking about stuff. That was seems like our government pulled that one off okay. Or at least people within our government. Let's say that. Yeah. Let's not say the whole government, because there's a lot of great people that do government jobs every day, hard jobs, which I wouldn't want to do. But anyway, so that's kind of the thing. If you're a conspiracy theorist locally and want to be on the show and talk to me and you have a theory that you're like all in on, that you know things about, message me and I'll look into it and then come on and we'll chat about it. Beyond that, I'm going to be having people that I've known, in this case kind of grown up with, known for a long time, that are also in entrepreneurs or business people locally, maybe some comedians, other guests like that to talk about different stuff, and that's kind of the thing. So without further ado, this is Mike Stewart to my right. Mike, I've known roughly 20 plus years now, I guess, since high school. Yeah. We went to high school together, basically went to college together. And yeah, so known each other for a long time, kind of like my first guest on my, the first podcast, Chandler, like I said, 20 years or so. And so that gives us a little history, makes it easier to chat, I think, than just like when you know somebody on Facebook and you like invite them to come do a podcast and you never really actually talk to them, and then you realize like you don't have a personality, or I can't.
Yeah, it's hard to break the ice when you don't have like a foundation built up.
Right, and there you go. It might just be that. You can't break the ice, and if you don't know somebody, it makes it tougher, and everybody's on edge. So my goal here initially is to have people I've known, so maybe that won't be an issue. So let me kind of tell you what Mike does, and I'll let you explain it a little bit. You've done a little bit of everything. Basically, lighting is your main thing. You're in the big event lighting. You've done wedding organizing and wedding DJing and
anything involved in the production realm. I kind of started out, early years working at Guitar Center, kind of learned a little bit about live sound and started training other guys in the lighting department, learned a little bit about video, and now I kind of project manage medium-sized to smaller concerts, and I kind of oversee everything. So I ended up at PSAV for about 4 years, and that's what I did is, you're in charge of everything. So it's rigging, it's audio, video, lighting, any aspect of like production for concerts or business conferences. That's what I manage. So you kind of got to keep an eye on every aspect of it.
Well, and that's where the money's at, right? And all the boring stuff kind of like that's I noticed that you also do churches, and not that church is boring, but churches are every week, and it's just like those business conferences, they pay the bills. And back when, that's another thing we were going to get into too, is like with this whole COVID thing, like there's nothing. Yeah. No events happening.
We were the first industry to get taken out, and we'll probably be the last to go back to work. Yeah. Especially on the large scale side of things. So.
Yeah, I don't know. You were discussing, I don't know if this counts as a conspiracy, but the NBA in Disney World, what's this? Explain this. I don't.
It's a rumor right now, but I heard they're looking at moving it to Disney World so that they can just have everything all together and just have all the teams there. It's probably a lot easier to maintain one space than it is just to have one in each area. Like you said, that really sucks for each economy.
Yeah.
The local economy aren't really getting
anything. Spend all these tax dollars to build these stadiums and do all this stuff, and now we're all screwed.
Right.
Is there? I didn't know Epstein was in charge of the NBA now.
He is. That's
right. It seems like odd. It seems like it seems like an odd choice of like, let's put all these in. I don't know. Anyways, let's maybe that's a conspiracy. Hopefully not, because I think ultimately all these teams play in a city and touring and stuff. But at the end of the day, canceling those large events and getting people from stopping moving around so much probably is a smart thing to do right now, or
Right.
when as we're figuring out how this disease works and spreads and all that jazz. But yeah, as you said, like that's the one thing. That business was hit the first. Like I was in, I'm in the service industry now, waiting tables, and we were kind of hit the first. We weren't shut down. We've just been kind of strangleholded, I guess is the best way to say it. Like, you got to do this. Regulations are changing every day. We got to do this now. We can't do that. Thank God I've been able to still work.
Right.
Well, let's get to that. So you have been unemployed now.
Yeah.
So have you found it relatively, because I didn't do that, and I've heard mixed results, but mostly everybody I've heard has gone on unemployment has been, I don't want to say happy about the fact they're on unemployment, but at least you've been able to get some assistance that actually has been a real thing, like unemployment or whatever.
Like anything that's kind of government mandated, it's like the implementation is the problem, right? So you have the stimulus they added, which I've been on unemployment for a while, pretty much as soon as this all happened.
Yeah.
And, I got the maximum for, what I used to take home, and then there's another $600 a week on top of that. But a lot of people, they just got whatever job they could. They went back to Amazon.
Right.
They got $15 an hour. Well, then they're looking at it, and they're like, I could be home and making just as much, if not more.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with that, you're at over $4,000 a month if you're hitting the max.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah.
The implementation, I think maybe everybody should have gotten at least the stimulus, even if they didn't get the unemployment, just to make up for the lack of hours.
Yeah.
But that's not really how it's playing
rolled
out.
out.
So a lot of people that did go back to work. I have another friend that's in Realty, and everything kind of shut down, and so he's the same way. He went to Amazon, and now he's like, I shouldn't have even applied for a job.
Oh yeah. Well, in real estate, it's a weird catch-22 because, nothing's really shut down. It's just that people have gotten. You can't go to the office. You can't do random things.
Right.
So if you're not a realtor who's been established or in a business, you're not. It's not easy to get new clients right now, but oddly enough, real estate's been selling still like crazy here.
Really?
Oh yeah, like nothing's slowed down.
Still a buyer's market, right?
That's kind of one, without getting too conspiratorial here, but let's go all in. The world's changing very fast in a lot of ways we do and do not understand. I'd point to, I think it was Thailand, that they moved their capital inland 30 miles, which logically tells you why, because they realize that sea levels and things are adjusting and changing, and we're seeing a lot of things that we don't understand or new. And
so when you say moving their capital, like they're moving the buildings
inland.
back?
Well, they're not moving the buildings because you obviously can't move the buildings now, but they legally made the capital of that country. And I might be wrong on it being Thailand, but it's one of the Asian island countries over there, and basically they've moved their capital
So their
city inland.
GDP isn't based upon those outlying areas anymore.
Well, I imagine there's people still living there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, it's like when I started in real estate, a bunch of people moved from AT&T from San Antonio to Dallas, so that's been a big thing. And if you pay attention to the trends, for the past 5 to 10 years, lots of large companies have been moving to Texas, specifically North Texas. To me, this area, we live in kind of a bubble. We're not going to be affected in a lot of the ways that coastal cities are being affected. More population-dense areas are being affected, just because. And
there's more money in our economy as well.
Yeah,
100%.
So
when you're barely hanging on, then anything is just devastating at that point.
Yeah, and Texas as a whole, is, I don't remember where it's at, but it's in the top 15 or 10 to 20. As a whole, is GDP is pretty large and relatively independent. If we would legalize cannabis, we would probably be completely independent and no problems, right? But that's a whole nother.
It's definitely helped Colorado.
Yeah, it definitely has, and what it's also helped is it's helped just. I think with the whole policing issues and stuff we're having now too, is it just lowers the bar of like, hey, let's go bust people for reasons and let's get into people's business. We don't need to be in their business,
I think a lot of issues were kind of like on the fence, and a lot of stuff that's come up, like cannabis and policing and all that stuff. It's like what's happened recently is just kind of busted the floodgates open.
Yeah.
Into like, let's just change everything while we got the momentum going. Let's figure out what we need to do to happen to like make this more manageable.
Yeah, and as much as I'm.
And more tax dollars. Come on.
Well, that's
Who isn't for that?
Yeah, well, and that's what they're trying to do in a lot of places, or at least adjust the tax dollars to where they're being spent, which, I don't know. I don't think I can argue with that. I just like to see police officers trained.
Yeah.
Give them some vacation.
Yep.
Make it a hard job, or make it a job people want to aspire to instead of
I saw somebody compare
a
it
job.
to like, they're like, well, there's few bad apples. Well, you don't have bad apples in the same sense that you do with like a pilot.
Yeah, that was Chris Rock, I think, is what he
Yeah.
said. You can't have a bad pilot. Yeah, American Airlines can't. Yeah, you can't say they have a bad.
Just
Paul's
sorry, he
laughing
had
over
a bad
there.
day.
Yeah.
100 people died. Like,
Yeah, whoops. And I get it's a stressful job, and I think one aspect of it a lot of people don't talk about, and, we grew up in a small town. I think we could, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but drug war, like the drugs, the drugs that were plentiful when we were in high school, and I'm assuming in some form or fashion are still relatively plentiful now.
Well, and I don't think Forney was any different than any other small city. I mean, the least the amount is there to do, then there's probably going to be even more of it.
And more problems. And, I think what we've seen over our lifetime in 20 years, I remember, I'm not going to say any names, but there was a kid that we went to high school with, two kids we went to high school with, I believe they're in your grade. One ended up being a SWAT officer and one is not. And, one of them, at one point, one of the guys ended up in jail and saw that guy, and the guy who's a SWAT officer didn't even acknowledge him, or say hi, and the guy was pissed off about it. And I was like, well, I don't know. At the end of the day, I get it. It's weird, but it's strange how that dynamic kind of plays out, because in the reality is, and if you look at the numbers, the minorities busted in those kind of large busts, far outweigh anybody else. Right. And not only that, like, we haven't been able to kill this thing in 30 years. Do you think we're going to be able to do it now? Like,
right.
No, it's propped up large criminal enterprises all over the world. Arguably, the American government being one large one, or at least two sides of it being a big player in it. And it's helped, okay, Miami wouldn't exist as a city if it wasn't for cocaine. So let's not get too upset about everything. There's been good sides and bad things, or good sides to this bad issue.
Or is the government the shining example of an exemplary, citizen?
Yeah.
As a whole, I mean.
Yeah. Well, and that's when I said they try to. I don't know. It's just, to me at this point we have to have a real conversation about that, because if we do that, then we can change things a little bit easier. Because the policing stuff that if cops weren't trying to investigate all the time, leave that to the DEA, leave that to the feds, leave that to them. Stop having police officers pull people over for random stuff and say, oh, well, we heard there was a call. No, okay, no. I mean, if there's really a problem, somebody's going to call you. If someone's driving crazily erratic, pull them over. If someone's going 10 miles over, leave them alone. And I think that's cool to me is we got these cameras now. So, like, I think that's kind of blowing it wide.
You can't get away with nothing.
No.
You watch all the old murder mysteries, you can just murder anybody in the 60s and
get away with
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah, it was like the Mulaney bit. You remember that? Was
completely different.
What did he do before DNA? Oh, get rid of that blood. It's gross. Clean it up. I've got a hunch. It's
if
like,
you jaywalk now, it's on video somewhere.
Yeah, and I get it, conspiracy, and obviously the name being Conspiracy City, and I get that element. People are, I don't want the government to be intrusive. But if you understand how algorithms work and how computer databases work, all this stuff is just data-based. It's not like there's some individual, unless you have a federal case open against you, there's not like there's some individual watching everything you fucking do. It's just being all recorded that, if something goes wrong, then they can go backwards and go, well, what happened here? And that's new.
I think the more we have open information, the more we have cameras everywhere. You start to realize some of these things that sound crazy as conspiracies really aren't that far-fetched, and we start to get these things backed up and proven, which makes it even worse in the long run.
Yeah,
it's harder to determine what is and what isn't.
Well, and I think the reality is that we've lived in a police state for most of our lives, and we've seen that exponentially raised with surveillance and all these different things. And I've had this conversation with my mom to an extent, but I don't see it as necessarily a bad thing. One of the issues with history is that people have been able to be disingenuous in who they are.
Absolutely.
And now,
because what's the worst thing that happen? Oh, they just delete their posts.
Right. Well, and that's the thing.
They apologize.
They apologize and move on. And well, not only that, but think about before social media, when the entertainment industry was, very much a community in and of itself. People. That's how you get a Bill Cosby. That's how you get a Weinstein. That's how you get, and no offense to Mitzi Shore, but Mitzi Shore was banging through comedian dudes when she was up and coming in the 70s and 80s. She's one of the biggest comedy gatekeepers, and arguably a good.
Just for people that don't know who that is.
Oh, if you don't know who, Mitzi Shore is, she's the matriarch of the Comedy Store. Arguably one of the most influential comedy, if you're into stand-up comedy, one of the most influential figures because of who she ultimately allowed the Comedy Store to run with, like, you know, Chris Rock and Pryor and all these people back in the day, and then just, you know, Kinnison, and let these guys just run nuts. And you know, and to me, as an American, as stand-up comedy is, that's kind of the part of it that's fun. Is like, you know, that's what a comedian at its essence is supposed to be able to do, is just kind of poke holes in everything.
Yeah.
And she allowed that to happen, and a lot of holes got poked in her as well. So, which is a little bit different.
I was not there for that. So.
Yeah, I wasn't either. It's all rumor and capitulation, but I think it's probably true. I mean, I can't imagine that a woman in the 70s and 80s, you know, in the peak of the feminist era, was not trying to get some strings or get, you know, and I don't.
For sure.
Power dynamics be what they are. I think that back to the original point, it's nice that you can be who you say you are, and it can't be anybody else.
Right.
I think that's an interesting thing that politicians are having to deal with, media people are having to deal with.
Well, my thing with the media, and it kind of boils down to everything I think about, like what our news has become lately. One of the most interesting thoughts I've had on it that somebody else has pointed out, wasn't my original thought, but you can have an organization put out an article and it can be completely false, and they can run with it until the time where they actually figure out, oh, all of our sources were wrong. They can retract that story, but all that money that they made from that article,
they keep it.
They keep every bit of it.
Oh yeah.
Why wouldn't they keep it going?
Look, 100%. Well, and if you go back a little further, maybe to like Occupy, I think is a good marker. 2011 or 12, when Twitter kind of took over the media, basically, and it was, you know, a lot of amazing things happened with Twitter within the Arab Spring. It was able to help actual grassroots efforts happen over there.
And you went to didn't you go to New York for the?
No, I didn't go to New York. I was in Dallas a lot.
Okay.
I went to the one here in Dallas and kind of hung
I
around
know you
there.
went to some of the Occupy stuff. I didn't know which.
And I got a lot of people that I'm still friends with that I met down there, and that was an interesting thing because as that played out on the ground across the nation, what happened was you saw this kind of grassroots efforts of people on Twitter and stuff, you know, getting together, and then like RT.com, Russian Time, all these kind of like, and that, to me, that's like Fox News for like 20-year-old do nothing, just the same way Fox News is Fox News for our grandparents, you know what I mean? It's kind of bullshit stuff. It's hyper sensationalized. It's trying to pitch a narrative. And that kind of took over. And yeah, mass media in that time struggled for relevancy and ultimately ended up following tons of fake stories. And now we have pay-per-click, where exactly that. It's a profit incentive that's built just on that. Like, okay, you know, and I mean, that's, to me, is why I don't even take online. I don't take social media seriously. I know you don't think. I mean, you watch me use social media for all the time that we've both been using it. I don't take it seriously. I mean, I don't. I think I have my own name under like RJ Avery as my account with my family and stuff that I share pictures every once in a while for people to see that I don't see every day. And then I have my joking account for my stand-up comedy that I really had to create that because, you know, I had at one point someone call my boss and try to get me fired for posting jokes online. And like, that's a weird place to be as society is like, you know, I know that this was 5 years ago. We've kind of, it's gone even more and more. Cancel culture is kind of in full swing right now. And that's a scary thing, right? I mean, I don't think I'm not scared because like I don't typically go off on people in public, and I don't have any like tapes of me just ranting the N-word or fucking putting down women or any of that kind of stuff just out there floating. Right. But I mean, that's not the only thing that gets people popped these days.
Well, we also have a bit of entrepreneurial spirit behind our backs too, and so in my position, I've had people that are like, "Oh, I'm going to go after your employer. I'm going to get it." Well, I'm like, "Well, I own all 3 companies that that I work for, so I don't know how you're going to go about that." But I thought cancel culture was kind of dying out. I think it's kind of had a resurgence with everything lately, and some of it is needed.
I agree.
That's the hard thing is like there's a lot of good that comes from a lot of this stuff, and then there's a lot of bad that comes with it, and it's kind of being able to kind of mud yourself through those waters and figure out what was effective, what wasn't. 'Cause sometimes I think if we just rely on emotions to spearhead everything, that's when we really run into problems.
Oh yeah, and innocent people
logically
get hurt. But like in the Chris D'Elia thing, like that guy obviously need to be outed. You know, Louis had been being outed for like 2 years online before anything hit the mass media.
But Chris did too because he.
I'm sure. I mean, he was. If you watch any of his, that's what's baffles me about this Hollywood
the
thing.
pedophilia character.
Well, yeah, you watch these characters online, and and I'm not.
But what's comedy? It's kind of an extension of yourself. You can kind of be who you want to be. You can be ambiguous, but you can also be another person if you want to. And that's what I like about comedy is it's you don't really know what's real and what's not. Yeah. Sometimes people kind of out themselves before.
Before they even comes out in a way. Well, Louis C.K. for sure. I listen to Pandora at night, and one of his bits popped up about him showing his dick to I'm sorry, I don't know if you can say that, penis to a retarded girl.
PG-13.
To a Down syndrome woman as a child, like 9 years old. Like he this is a whole bit he had, and like this was before, so it's like,
right.
I mean, if you go back to his hotel room, or you go back anywhere with this man, like this man is capable of all these things he's probably said. Yeah. That just baffled me with him. The D'Elia thing is weird because it's getting strange. Everybody's a pedophile now. Yeah. Which I hate that we have to draw distinctions here. And they're saying he was grooming these girls. And, like, I don't know. I didn't really go too deep into it. But from what I've heard, he was basically any town he'd go into. I mean, even Hannibal Buress has talked about doing something like this. And he's kind of the pinnacle of he took down Cosby. So if Hannibal does it, it's not, like, too creepy, I guess. But as a touring musician, comedian, whatever, when you go into a town, part of going into that town is maybe trying to hook up with somebody or have a good time. Right. Obviously with a consenting adult. And I do think if you're a 28-year-old, 30-year-old dude and you're trying to hit that 18-year-old line, like, just every time, right. I mean, you're shooting low on a tree. For sure. And I think that's the problem with D'Elia's situation is that there have been so many that have come forward. Yeah. From what I've seen so far, and I haven't looked at all of it, what I've seen so far, anytime they said they're underage, it was either, okay, this is shut down, or it was like, hey, 18th birthday was last month, right? Yeah. So, do you put that on the same level as Harvey Weinstein? No. I don't think so, no. How far do we take it? And that's this whole gray area. Oh, technically, if he hadn't done anything, he's not a pedophile. It could be grooming. I mean, there's still a lot more to come out on it. I think was it Drake? He's the groomer, right? Isn't that the guy who's the groomer, supposedly? I mean, yeah, because I guess what Miley Bobby, he's real good friends with. When she's 11, and that's grooming. And as someone who's done went to school for sociology and has paid attention to some of this stuff, grooming to me is when you befriend a child, even if you're not pedophilic. But you befriend that child young with the idea of when they are of age to being the first person they kind of depend on or whatever. I mean, they're jokingly. You remember Lex and Terry, the show back in the day? They got canceled a long time ago for doing Eagle. They were on the Eagle. They're nationally syndicated. They're here in Dallas, but they basically got canceled originally or got fired from the Eagle for doing the whole Britney Spears killed herself thing, and that got them knocked off. And this is back in way before. Really? Because that's Let's look that up. Yeah, it was an old one. But anyways, they used to have a running bit, talking about such and such is coming up on their 18th birthday, and this was a running bit that they did. Yeah, it's and extra creepy. Yeah, it was. But looking at it through nowadays' eyes, totally creepy. Back in those days, I was a 20-something-year-old man, boy, child, whatever. It was just kind of part of that culture I think we all kind of grew up in. And that's a large problem that I have with cancel culture is they look back on these things from 12 years ago. I mean, the stuff with Kevin Hart and all that. Oh, Jesus, that was a horrible one. Was it the Oscars or the Grammys? He lost out. I mean, he'll be fine. But I'm glad to see he stood up for it and said, "Nah, I'm not going to do this." Right, this but you can't apply the same standards from today of what we all collectively see as a problem that I think a lot of us collectively 12 years ago wouldn't have seen it as a problem. Right. And that's what human progression is about. Yeah, we were in the middle of it. Cancel culture doesn't allow us to have any sort of, place to grow from. Yeah. It's just like, you're this is right now, you're done with, we'll get you out of the spot. Well, that's the scary thing for me, with that's kids. What I have a problem with. Yeah, and I have with our kids specifically is that they're not going to be allowed to make mistakes. That's the main conversation I have with my daughter who's going on 13, and it's like, hey, look, and, I tell her about it. I'm as honest with her as I can be about everything I've been through. And then secondly, the world you're moving into is not something that I understand necessarily, but I have to be real with you about what's going on. And the reality is privacy's over. Right. I mean, you have to have conversations with your kids about keep your webcam covered. And I'm not trying to make them paranoid, but the reality is, and not even just that, but don't take stupid pictures with your phone because the reality of creepos is that they're a lot of times with technology, it's just one person. It don't have to be a government. It don't have to be a big fluting conspiracy. It can just be some weirdo who takes interest in you or some teenager. I remember hearing when we were growing up, there's this kid. I'm not going to mention his name either. I'll tell you afterwards.
I know all
maybe.
these people.
You know this guy. I know you know this guy. He came on one time a long time ago, and like back when Facebook, like 2009, 8, and like I posted something, and he got all upset and went in on me. He's like, I'm just, it's funny to see you back in the hometown doing real estate and fucking loser and all this stuff. And I was like, that's weird. I mean, strange. But anyways, another friend of ours reached out to us, and she's like, oh yeah, remember when that guy, he had tapped their phone lines, like a couple different girls that we went to high school with. He had figured out ways to monitor their phone conversations and was doing it. Yeah. And this is,
I would think back then you had to like get into their house almost to do it.
He was a pretty smart kid when it came to like, I know back then he was, if you were messing with computers in 94, 95, 96, 97, and you were on the internet and you were a kid with parents who weren't paying attention to you, good Lord knows what you could have got into. We've had some friends that did that and did well,
Yeah, it took the FBI showing up to our friend's house once before we quit messing around with all that stuff.
Yeah, and I have too many acquaintances that have that story, oddly enough. I've met more than one where it's, it gets real fast because, as a child, you don't know necessary lines that you're
there's
crossing.
three things going to happen. You're going to get a warning,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go to jail, or you're going to get a job.
Or get a job.
You get
The
a
job
you
is
be damn good at it.
if you're shooting for anything, shoot for the job. Like that's what we call, I think, ethical hacking. I think would be the name for that now. So yes, if you want to expose, oddly enough, I think we know one guy in common that had that exact route, and I know another guy. I don't think but yeah, same thing. He got fucking, I'm sorry, I can't say bad words. Apologize. Beep. He got raided, and then ultimately was given a job. Either the option of jail or a job.
Right.
And I would take the job 99% of the time. Sorry.
Yeah, with higher paying.
It is.
Maybe
It is.
25 cents an hour more.
And reality was they weren't snitching on anyone as much as they were they were helping. In one of the cases I was most familiar with, he was just helping them figure out corruption within the county it was a larger entity trying to figure out corruption within our local governance, which is something I think the feds should do that. I believe that's what their purpose should be. I don't think they should be figuring out, if you look at, if there is a positive side to federal involvement, it's that it has, when the time has been needed, it has pushed progress and forced progress,
So I guess that goes back to, what is your opinion on, let's say, Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, WikiLeaks, Anonymous?
Hammond,
is that exposing everything for our own freedoms, or is that somewhat traitorous to the country to leak information like that other countries could use against us?
Well, specifically in the case of, there's a lot, you've mentioned a lot of different names there and a lot of different cases are involved there, but one I can specifically speak to, because I looked into it myself a little bit, was the Stratford hack, which was the one that actually I think Jeremy Hammond's in jail for now. Mm-hmm. Barrett Brown ended up doing 3 years in federal prison for. Ultimately, that guy trolls. If you like people who troll the government, he's, in my opinion, he's the highest one up there. I mean, did 3 years in federal penitentiary just trolling the whole time. They had nothing that stuck. Now, what's traitorous to me is what they exposed. A relationship between a county or local judge and a large corporation that is mutually beneficial and does not have any third-party eyes on it. That's traitorous to our country. Exposing that is not traitorous, in my opinion. Like the guy, I forget his name, the Silk Road guy, but I think we had mutual friends who know him or knew him. I know that when he got in trouble, I saw a bunch of people post about how bad it was. Another case, a similar situation where, in that case, that gets into a darker area just because that guy kind of sounds like maybe he did some things, maybe he didn't. And ultimately what the Silk Road did, what they don't want to acknowledge, especially some of my more ethical friends, is they just made a backdoor for nefarious crime to be able to shuffle their money and to move their things around in a lot easier manner than ever before.
Right.
And ultimately decentralize something that had kind of been centralized and made peaceful to an extent, and decentralize it in a way that it caused more calamity, war, people fighting over territory or whatever, things that come along with those dark economies, what you're talking about, drug trafficking, human trafficking, all sorts of things. So, it's complicated stuff. I don't see it being traitorous ever to just release emails. If you're paid by our government as a federal employee, or you're paid to be a contractor to a federal employee, or if the lump sum of your money comes from federal contracts, your communications that have to do with business should all be open record. That's just my opinion, and that's
it is what our tax dollars go to.
Right. It is what it is, and I think in essence that's what we're seeing a lot of problems with right now, is that the government that has been and the people that have been in power have been so used to saying, oh, okay, well, this is how it is, but then they go out on the weekends and they behave a whole different way, and they're a different kind of person. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing an ending to here, and not necessarily a comfortable one. I think that's why you have mental illness is higher than ever, or not higher than ever, but definitely something to be concerned about. You have a lot of different issues with homelessness and all these different things, because we're just seeing the holes in the system that's never really benefited anybody except for a few. Granted, the argument can be made, I think, that overall, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if we're able to look back and be honest about some of this stuff, that maybe we can fix it and not make the same fucked up mistakes or messed up mistakes. Sorry, okay. So that's what I was worried about doing conspiracy.
I was worried about me, and you've been the one letting it go the whole time.
I told you,
I can turn it off real quick.
I'm bringing my swear jar. No, you're way better at turning it off than I am. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, traitorous. No, I don't see any of those guys as traitorous. I think that the federal government is so huge, and so what is it? I heard the fact the other day: the Department of Defense is the largest employer in our country.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane if you think about what that is. I mean, how many people are they paying to not do a dang thing?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. I mean, what?
Okay,
Everybody see my
damn? That's the one. That's
dang.
The one
I said dang. Yeah. My Blue Heaven. Everybody seen that movie? Did you ever see My Blue Heaven? It's a great movie. You know what I'm talking about? Ricky. It's from when we were kids. Steve Martin and Rick Moranis, and basically Steve Martin's got busted, and he witness protection into this neighborhood, a small town, and he realizes all these other guys that have been witness protection are in the same town. They basically set up a racket and end up building a baseball stadium for kids, and it's a feel-good story, right? But yeah,
regular Rick Moranis movie.
Yeah, regular, pretty much formulaic, and amazing at the same time. But a lot of great one-liners, and the characters they play are hilarious. But same idea as the Department of Defense is our largest employer. Okay, well that's kind of wild. Like, just to think about, they're paying a lot of people probably to do things or not do things, and do a lot of things and do nothing.
I've always said that about like the idea of the Republican Party. They're conservatives, and they haven't been conservatives forever. I mean, we keep putting all of our money into fighting wars and crime and everything else. There's nothing conservative about it. And until they acknowledge that and then start trying to change some of our spending habits, you really can't complain about the amount of money we put towards welfare and social services and safety nets and all that stuff, because they're going around and spending 10 times the amount of money and then saying, oh, look what we put into that.
Yeah, it's a fraction.
It's not a worthwhile project, when in fact it is. Like, this is the richest country in the world, as far as I know, don't quote me.
Well, individually, for sure.
We should be able to have some sort of safety guards, just knowing that we're Americans and, we take care of each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what things are kind of slowly starting to change and come around to.
I hope so. I mean, I know that there was the theory back in the day, and by starting a welfare state, you're going to hurt people, which I think you did because of Jim Crow laws and because of zoning and redlining and all the things that happened throughout. Yes, we did specifically end up as a nation hurting the black community 100%.
Right.
But if we take those same ideas and say, hey, listen, we need to realize that, yes, we need these safety nets. Yeah. And we need to take care of everybody, and not just one group. We can't say this group's bad. If you go to work, if you show up to do a job, whatever your job may do, if you're not trying to defraud the federal government, well, that's another thing that has to be talked about to an extent, is like this welfare stuff has gotten to a point where it's not welfare anymore. It hasn't been welfare for 30 years, 40 years. It's been certain people getting money and then not distributing it correctly and not giving it out. That's why we need, federal investigations on local police forces and on county officials and on people, because to make sure that they spend the money they're given. One of the biggest things in Katrina was these politicians were given money and given the warning, hey, you need to get engineers on this, you need to do this, and then they let it fail.
And we can give all this money out to the businesses, and I'm for it because the businesses are made up of people.
Yeah, the money's fake anyways.
Businesses go under, those employees lose their job. I understand that 100%. However, at the same token, we're talking about we can spend this many billions of dollars a year on fighter jets.
Yeah.
Yet we can give these other corporations millions of dollars as soon as the stimulus comes through, but we have nobody to oversight to actually see where that gets implemented. Just produce one less jet a year.
Or if we're writing fake checks.
We got 500 people to
oversee it. Or if we're writing fake checks, which is what we're doing, why can't we just, I think that's what we're seeing now, why can't we just write a whole bunch of checks to make sure that we get a homeless shelter put in place, or that we can build an orphanage or build a home for people who don't, or having mental health problems and need a place to stay that's cheap while they try to get a job and get started. Why can't we spend all that fake money on that? Because that's where we're at now. The dollar's fake. It's not fake as much as it's kind of baloney.
It's not backed by gold.
And then we go, no. And, well, if let's go down a conspiracy rabbit hole. How long till we're on a world dollar?
The memes have been saying that for a while now, right?
The what?
Wasn't it the Amero?
No, the Amero was the first one. And then
Canada, U.S., and...
Have you heard of FedCoin?
Uh-uh.
So this is, okay, so they're in the...
Was this Bitcoin for, like, Harvey Weinstein, or...?
No, close. But no, so when the stimulus bill came out, they announced the $1,200, blah blah blah, and I wasn't too interested in that because I'm right now I hired a tax attorney and I'm going through all the stuff of fixing my tax problems from the past 8 years of doing real estate and not filing.
For us running businesses for the last 8 years, not knowing what we're doing.
Yeah, that's when people are like, Trump needs to get his tax returns. Listen, as an independent business person, whatever. I'm sorry. Like
between me and my CPA, it's still
he up until he became a president, he was a private individual. So like, I would have to respect that line personally because moving forward, bust him if he makes some money or whatever if you have to do it. But yeah, like I've lost where I was going because I went on a Trump rant.
We're talking about the worldwide Bitcoin.
Oh, so the second round,
Fed
so
coin?
they came out with the 1,200 thing, and then the next volley back, and you can go back and look at all this probably. The Democrats came out with a package that was going to give everybody $2,000 or something, but it was going to be distributed through FedCoin. So then I went back and looked up FedCoin, and FedCoin it's a cryptocurrency started about a year ago by the Fed, and in my opinion, it's either to rival Bitcoin and or crash Bitcoin, because there's let's just play theoretical ball here for a second.
Okay.
Say you're the largest criminal enterprise in the world, and you're the governments of this country or this world that have been in the business of crime forever, and there's a new competitor on the block. You ultimately get that new competitor to invest all their money into something, and then you make it completely worthless. So you basically just sucked all of their resources, everything they've worked for 10 to 15, 20 years out, and they're done.
Yeah.
And my conspiracy theory on the back end of this COVID thing is that's what's happening. Like there's a large thing happening. And if you go on to conspiracy things, you see all these crazy stories. And some are hilarious as they are probably not true at all just because they're people being creative, writing licenses and whatnot. But the reality of it, too, is that something's going on. Like, did you follow what happened in India like 3 years ago? Basically, what happened in India was they put out a memo or whatever to the nation of 4 billion people. They got a lot of people.
Worldwide email?
Yeah, right. But basically, they said, hey, in 3 months, the 1s, 5s, and 10s, and I'm probably messing that up because they don't have 1s, 5s, and 10s, but these denomination of bills are going to be worthless. So you either got to get them in a bank or enjoy your new pillow stuffing.
Yeah.
So basically, and I think that's something that's at play with this whole thing, just because the Silk Road and Bitcoin, as much as technocrats and these people like made money off of it and have this thing that they can't really cash out of, it's a cool thing. Like I said, I think that they just propped up and re-instigated a fight that really wasn't supposed to happen again.
Yeah.
Because it had been settled to an extent. And now we're seeing that kind of this grab of some sort to do that. And the Fed coin, because what did you do? If you go to a Fed coin, you go to a cryptocurrency-backed situation, in my understanding of blockchain, you start doing this, what you end up doing is ostensibly making it to where it's very, 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 very tough to be disingenuous anymore with who you are, where your money's coming from, where it's going to.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
I think the scariest part of it was the time that they actually decided to try to implement it, and that's like during a national pandemic. That's when we're going to overhaul like the entire currency system.
No, I'm not saying they're doing that right now.
I think I'm not as much in a conspiracy on this one. I think that the government's trying to get us away from any sort of like cash options at all.
Oh no, 100%.
Because you look at it now, how much they've cracked down. I mean, what do we start doing stuff at TJ's in like 2002? Yeah. And I mean, I just used to make cash my entire life. I never really
even got a check.
Claimed any of it.
Yeah, when I waited tables, same thing.
Yeah. Now they have it so if a band plays at a club, they're supposed to get Social Security numbers from each one of those people.
Yeah, which
or
is
they have
insane.
to have like a tax ID number for the band.
Right.
They have to pay them and then keep it. I mean, for like, what are these bands playing for? $100 a piece?
Yeah.
So, my opinion, they're trying to get every single tax dollar as they can, for sales and income tax. But.
Well, I mean, I don't know. To me, because while, yes, that's been happening in our country and to us as a people, which to me, the bottom line is, as individuals, we shouldn't have to pay a federal income tax, in my opinion. I think we should have to pay state and local taxes. And if you're a large company or an individual who does interstate commerce, bam. Or international commerce, bam. Now you got to get taxed because you're making money off of those two things, which from my understanding of the Constitution is roughly the way it's worded. But, the IRS stepped in and kind of done their thing, and it's been a voluntary system for some time. Obviously, when there's people like Trump and these larger players who don't want to volunteer, and they fight the system, a lot of times they win because it's litigious stuff that they get into. And, yes, they have to, disclose, and they have to blah, blah, blah. They want to make sure money's not being used illegally, when a lot of times tons of it is, and they don't even care, So, but what I was going to say is that while we were going through all that kind of stringent, hey, we need to watch your money, we watch your money, pallets of cash are disappearing on the other side of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? So pallets of American currency, which are just as valuable in India as they are valuable in downtown Dallas, disappear on the other side of the world, which, arguably, there's a reason for that. It helps if we're wanting to help certain people in a certain area in these times gain influence and gain power, then we have to give them the means to do that, and nothing better than cash, because not only does that help you out locally, that helps you out internationally, and if you are whatever. I mean, those are complicated situations going over there. I mean, I think as a nation, we've been, I don't know, I started watching politics when Bush got elected, I guess, and kind of paying attention then, and then realized how much of a just insane it was. And then, like, as social media came on, I think, and Barack Obama got elected. Once Barack got elected, all these people get involved who would have never been involved before, but now they're involved because they don't like the color of that guy, to be quite honest, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think it really was that's what it was. You saw a large segment of our nation who, I won't say they're lazy, but they're not lazy, but they've been in their bubble, and they've been doing their thing, and life's never been different for them. And then when that happened, and then Facebook was going on at the same time, so then you have this. I remember getting like Kaufman County Tea Party emails back in the chain days, like before it got co-opted, like they would have it had the Tea Party stuff, and some of the chain letters they would get duped on. I would just be like, y'all really believe this stuff?
Right.
Like y'all aren't buying this part of it, are you? Not going to sit here and say that there wasn't just like that wake-up call was necessarily a negative thing. I don't think it was all negative. I think it woke up people to the fact that, look, I thought he was a great president, but he didn't do anything different than Bush. He really wasn't like a insane policy.
Which can anybody that makes it that far really have that much influence?
Especially a minority in our country?
Yeah, you had to bow to every single
They shot JFK.
Yeah.
They shot MLK. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't. If you're a family man, you're going to do what you got to do to play ball.
Well, and I think, like, the whole access to information, my hope for it was that, okay, cool, we can all be more educated, we can understand things a lot better because now everybody has everything at their fingertips. We're just now, I mean, social media has only been big for like 15 years, and we're still figuring out how to manage it. We have no idea.
Oh, no.
Just look at the scramble that YouTube and Twitter and all these outlets are in right now because they have no idea how to manage all this information coming out. No matter what they do, it's a catch-22.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, so instead of like people, okay, well, cool, I can research this and then figure out some better information. People just ended up Googling their own biases and then finding other news organizations that agree with what they have.
Yeah, feedback
and it's just this continual echo chamber. Well, if I don't agree with them, then I'll just block them. And now I have an entire feed of confirmation bias all day long.
Yeah, and just
Who
tell
can
me
ever
what I
tell
want to
them
hear.
that they're wrong?
Yeah, and I also watched that happen. You know, when I created the Busco account and started using that account, getting defriended by people who like in the music scene or whatever comedy scene or whatever group of people I was actually socializing with in real life, but also having this online presence with. I just remember watching like, oh, people post like, oh, I want to delete these kind of people, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but like, you know, why? Like, I mean, are they harassing you? Like, if someone's like on your feed all the time and just messing with you particularly, I get that 100%. That's annoying. But like, if I just chime in and say, hey, well, what about this?
Right.
And instead of immediately attacking you as, oh, well, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a misogynist,
Well, you
and I
can't
cancel you.
And that comes with the idea of kind of this identity politics is that who you are is inherently what your makeup is. And so if you say anything different on the contrary of what you think, and that's your belief system, then you're attacking them as a person. And that's how things are just viewed now.
And it's
unfortunately
strange. I mean, I think we're seeing it for what it is right now, and it's starting to get changed. And hopefully we move into a space where maybe, I mean, social media is an addiction. You know, that's one that I would say I have 100%. You know, my wife had it, and you know, the best thing she ever did was to get off of it because I think different people are wired differently. You know, I have to be. Yeah. I was doing real estate back then and still trying to do it now, you know, but I was very busy then, and I had to be on it, monitoring it to do business. But when you're not really doing something, like if you're just like gossiping about people and then trying to look into what this person's life's about, and if you're just playing like that kind of henhouse game with it, that's not healthy. that's messy, man.
You know what kind of the definition of like limbic resonance is?
No, go ahead.
So basically it's the idea that you put something on social media and then people, you know, whether it's a girl in a bathing suit and then you get 100 likes for it and they're kind of Instagram model, or you feel like you're putting something political out there and all these people are gravitating towards it, they share it. For us, it's putting up stupid memes and then having people share it and comment on it. That feeling that you get from that is the same as you get from like, it's all dopamine.
Oh, like cocaine. Yeah. It's the same thing.
You get it from drugs, you get it from everything else.
Yeah, 100%.
And so
it's a small drip.
And this goes into like kind of my conspiracy about social media and kind of at least what it started out as. My opinion was that Facebook was kind of created as a development tool to try and see how the interaction between AI, which is right now in the form of like algorithms, how that interacts with the human population.
Yeah,
right?
Makes sense.
So see,
I mean, let's back up. It actually started for nerds to hook up on the internet. That's how Facebook started. It was literally a database. Initially, it was 19 to 20-year-old dudes sitting around in a dorm room who couldn't get laid if they just walked outside and tried to get laid based on just the normal things of getting laid, which I couldn't either. So I'm
surprised Mark can still to this day. I mean, he's a robot, man.
Well,
it's an odd dude, man.
I don't know him. God bless him. Whatever. But yeah, I think that's how it started. Whatever happened. There's a movie about it, I think, out there called The Social. Yeah. Whatever.
There's got to be a movie about it.
There's got to be a movie about it. That's another thing. But yeah, I think that ultimately the reason the government and people took on that idea is exactly that, and that's what they've used it for 100%.
But think about how they're literally controlling your levels of dopamine in your body because they're able to adjust the algorithm to where this gets more likes, this gets more shares.
Right.
This goes further. This has more reach. They're literally controlling people's brains, and that's just as powerful as a drug. There's a lot of information coming out that, especially for young teen girls, social media is one of the worst places.
Yeah.
Because if you're a guy and you have a problem with somebody else, what do? You go talk to them, and if you guys don't agree, somebody gets punched in the face. Okay.
Very normally, yes. In a very normal
setting. What do girls do? They talk behind each other's back. They'll make up stuff. They try to destroy their lives and sabotage in different ways.
Right.
What if now they're able to go create a fake Twitter account, create a fake Instagram account, slander all this stuff about this girl who is, you know, they're all traumatically, just living life. I mean, even for
Through it.
guys, it was bad at 14, 15, 16.
Oh, no, yeah. So, yeah.
But imagine these girls now have this power to destroy other people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
And they can just delete that account the next day.
And they're off.
Then, you know.
Well, and I think that's slowly, we've luckily gotten hip to that over the past 3 or 4 years, and thankfully there's programs in our schools now and stuff already talking. I mean, my daughter came home and talked about one that they're already talking about, but yeah, I've talked to her
you
about.
think it's slowing down then, or you think?
I mean, I don't know that anything's ever going to slow down.
This is a girl that used to go to Bull Room, back before that became Abby Underground and all that. And I was literally commenting something on her Instagram post, like, "Where did your baby go?" Because I remember it was like 2005. She had a kid, and then all of a sudden, she did craft-lying emoji, whatever. And the next thing you know, her daughter comments on it. She's like, "What baby?
What baby?"
And I'm just like looking, like, okay, that's just come completely full circle. Yeah, granted, I'm just old at this point,
Right. Well, and yeah.
But it's crazy to be like, "Where'd your baby go?" And then her baby
is
comments
online.
on it.
Yeah. No,
her baby's 14 years old.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
No, and it makes you, like, I remember my daughter was probably 11. Her mom messaged me, "Hey, she's got a Facebook Messenger." And I was like, "What?" Oh. Because I don't, I got a lot of garbage online, man. Like, I don't mind having these conversations with my daughter because I'll be like, I posted because I've talked to her about all this stuff. We joke about social media. One of the funniest things she ever said to me was, "These girls are sitting on here looking like sluts," and I was like, I didn't teach her this. I don't. That's not how I talk at home. Right. I don't. That's not me in any form or fashion. But I was very happy at the fact that at least she acknowledged that thing going on there.
She was how old then?
11.
She was 11.
And she's talking about Snapchat and these kids on TikTok dressing provocatively. And,
right. But think about, like, when we were 11, even at 14, I mean, I don't even think I knew what the word sluts was. You were just happy to get a girl to try to, like, hold your hand. You were just excited. Like, anything, any interaction. And now it's like, this girl dresses like a hoe. And it's like, how do you even know? It's because, and what's the fix for this?
There's no fix.
I honestly don't want my son on social media until he's 16. Well, he's got 10 years, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to block him from it. But
my only fix for it is to monitor it and talk to him about it. There's no other way to fix it. It's just to find out what they're into. I mean, to me, parenting, the easiest thing that no one tells you about parenting is just care. And actually, but not not care to the point of you want them. I think what our generation's parents got into the issue of was us being extensions of them instead of them helping us become who we want to be, or who we need to be. A lot of civil society and a lot of small towns and a lot of dynamics like that grow around as well. Such and such is doing. He's going to school here. He's doing this. That's kind of
it's a very small change, but it's also a drastic one for
huge for
kids
development,
that have different ideas on what they want to do and how to start at earlier stages, being able to push them in that direction if that's what they want to do.
Instead of growing up like where we grew up, where it's like, okay, you're going to be in band or football, and that was your two choices. You make a choice. You may be able to do both if you're amazing, but you need to choose a lane, and this is how we're going to move forward, regardless of if 3 or 4 years in you show no promise or talent or you have no athletic ability. Why let's not move you over here and get you into something?
You get a college degree, or you get a bad back, and you work at a grocery store the rest of your life.
Right, and I do think we're getting out of that. I mean, I think that like I said, I don't know. I mean, you mentioned the thing about, to me, like, we grew up with cable television, right, and kind of unharnessed, and I don't know that was a good thing necessarily, not a bad thing, but
better
now
than an open
internet
web browser
connection. Yeah, I mean, there's another thing my daughter told me. She said, her first, I wouldn't say it was her first boyfriend. We had this conversation, but a boy who had taken a liking to her. Ultimately, she decided to go with him, which even we heard a joke about that. She's like, "We're 11. This is stupid. Or 12. This is dumb. Blah blah blah." And she's like, "But I felt bad for him." And we had that conversation. Then I was like, "Number one, don't ever go out with a dude because you feel bad with him. You're setting yourself up for a problem from the jump." You know what I mean? Like, as a dude who probably chicks felt bad for sometime when I was younger, and that's why they were messing up. Just because, you don't go after a dude because you feel bad for him, or you definitely don't respond to him in that way. And I think it was a week after that we had a conversation. She goes, I found out about him. He was into hentai.
Great.
11 years old, like, that's like doing full blown rails of blow. Just
That's a little reaching, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like that's hentai. I don't watch
It definitely
that
bridges
stuff.
two worlds that should not be bridged for a young kid.
It's just a lot of stuff going on. I mean, what I know about the male brain. I mean, I learned in college that they've learned it in the male
It's like
brain.
mixing sugar and Coke and then sprinkling it on the ground for kids.
It's insanity.
You're bringing two worlds together that should not.
That shouldn't really.
Collide.
Well, that they should at least you should be exposed to later. Maybe I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, in my opinion, nobody should be exposed to it. But
I'm with you.
hey, to each your own.
To each your own to an extent. Hopefully, if you're over, but if you're under 18 and looking at stuff, like maybe go outside and play or something. Like go have a real social life. Don't like that's I don't know.
That's our
it's
problem.
strange.
We're so disengaged.
Yeah, and
we
they're
talk
pushing
so
us more of
much, but we're so disengaged from everyone else because we're all just living in these
little
our own
bubbles.
Little bubbles.
Yeah, well, that's the.
But when you hang out with, that's one thing I did like about growing up in Forney is that like it was so small you didn't really have a choice but to kind of interact with each other. I think these bigger schools you stay in with the nerds, stay in with the jocks, you stay in with whatever.
Right.
Definitely growing up in a little small conservative town. All the way through middle school and high school, and then spending about 5 years in East Dallas.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in your house and it's getting broken into at the same time, you get a little bit different life experience. You learn some stuff really quick.
Yeah.
Than living in super liberal Denton for 6 years. My perspective completely changed on a lot of stuff.
Oh, 100%.
You know, but I think that well-rounded type of that, and I don't feel like a lot of people ever get to experience that because they have the ability to just stay in these areas and not really interact with anything that really, would prod and poke at what their actual beliefs are.
Yeah, or what they're trying to do.
Because it's so much easier to just stay in that one little bubble your whole life now.
Oh, yeah. Well, now every little bubble has its own scene. You know, like going into the comedy thing, like I've noticed that, like when I was having a conversation with a comedian the other night, of like people trying to get people to join sides when someone has a simple disagreement or someone posts something dumb online or maybe says something that was taken out of context and then all of a sudden it becomes people like, oh, well, I'm on this person's side and that person's side. And it's like, well, okay, aren't y'all all trying to just do comedy? Like, don't y'all just want to be funny? Okay, why don't we just focus on that?
Yeah.
Like, because it doesn't matter what side. If you should never, in my opinion, as a person who enjoys art in all its forms, if you're trying to tell someone that you're going to not be their friend or not engage with them in their journey in art, whether it be comedy, music, DJing, doing your own businesses, whatever. If you're going to draw these lines in the sand over superficial kind of interactions with people, you're being see you next Tuesday. You know what I mean? You're being a rude person, and you're setting up and that's kind of what I've encountered most whenever I've gotten involved, because I don't take Facebook seriously. Yeah. But you have to take social situations seriously, and you have to acknowledge real dynamics in play when you're meeting and talking to people.
Well, but most people aren't really involved in a healthy dialogue about those situations.
Right, yeah.
They're there to argue of why their side is right. The superiority of thinking.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of the problem. That's why you notice, like, I put out, like, memes that are hard against conservatives, hard against liberals. Yeah. I go on everybody because I think there's valid criticisms for, like, every side of it.
Yeah.
But you also notice I don't put an opinion with it.
No, you don't need to share it.
99% of the stuff that I post, there's not even a word associated with it. I'm just posting a meme because it's funny.
Yeah.
People get upset by it all the time. I get defriended, whatever.
That's what I used to love when I was doing real estate, because I'd pull up to a house, and instead of like playing Candy Crush or something, I'd post something, and I'd go work for a couple, 2-3 hours, and I'd come back, and there'd be like 200 people just like, or not 200 people, but 200 comments, and like 3 people just going back at it. Well, I think we got like a minute left. But thank you, Mike, for stopping by. Thank you all for watching. Maybe you got a gist of what this idea is going to be, Conspiracy City. I mean, we're going to come on and talk about things, like people that have been affected by things, people I know, let's say with the shutdown, obviously has affected y'all's industry amazingly. And I noticed that y'all have had a DFW Corona connection, that whole thing. They've got a lot of people on there that are sharing stuff, and music people and stuff doing live streaming and trying to just kind of, to me, just stay sane, man, because like someone like you, who your livelihood, not only your livelihood, but your social life, all kind of revolved in the same thing.
Yeah, that's been the hard thing.
Being at home is not fun.
I always thought I was being diverse by knowing audio, video, lighting, all these things, being able to project manage entire events. Then at the same time, once I didn't realize that's all in one sector.
Yeah.
When that shut down, I'm like, I guess I better start studying for IT.
Something else.
Which I'm going to anyway, but it was just a very, very jarring realization.
Right.
Well,
that's what it is. Sometimes life will hit you in the face when you're not,
Yeah.
when you're not ready for it. I've been RJ Avery. This is Mike Stewart. He's got LMK Media.
LMK Media Group
And
DFW Lighting Design is my lighting design
all right.
company as well.
And I'm DDFW Realty. .com or DDFW Realty on the Facebook. And we're about a minute over our time now, so thank you very much for tuning in, and y'all have a great day. Thank you, Paul.
This is Pastor Derek.
Paul, right?
Broadcasting live